Okay, Peninsula University of Technology student leaders say the students' accommodation crisis at the District 6 campus is worsening. Hundreds of students will live stranded and sleeping on pavements outside the campus since Thursday night because of the alleged slow allocation of residence places. Newzroom Afrika reporter Nasiphi Same joins us live now. Nasiphi, good to catch up with you again. Obviously, chaotic situation, I'd imagine, putting these young people at risk because of the alleged slow allocation of residences. What do we know about this situation?
Well, Hugo, we had an opportunity to speak to the students this morning who, on their end, articulated what they believe is the problem. And they put at the center of the problem being a slow pace, allegedly, by the institution in allocating accommodation to the students. And we showed you those visuals of the students just outside the District 6 campus. But Hugo, in the morning again, I also indicated that just late last month, we were at CPUT at one of the residents that they were going to be opening their doors to first-year female students, just a stone throw away from where we were this morning. And they'd indicated last month that they have about 16,200 bed space for students. And I'm joined now by Lauren, who is the spokesperson of CPUT. But Lauren, it does seem, based on the students that we are speaking to, that there is a problem when students are sleeping outside. Talk to us about some of the measures that are going to be put in place, or perhaps the reason why they are outside.
So we make a distinction between an applicant and a student. For us, a student obviously is someone who has been accepted for study at CPUT. So I think a very important point to make is really that for this year, for the very first time at CPUT, we've seen an unprecedented uptake of enrollment. That means, CPUT is the second most popular university in the country, and we see that in our enrollment numbers. People are eager to study with us. They are traveling across the country to be at our doorstep, whether or not they've been accepted for study or not. So I think that when you are seeing those hordes of people outside campus, we need to distinguish, are those actually our students, or are those people hoping to be our students? And so that is certainly the case. Of course, there are those who have traveled. They have not been allocated a residence place. And so the system works for those who work with the system. I think that's a really important point to make, that we have 16,200 beds. We allocate almost half of our student cohort in campus housing, and that's more than any other university in the country.
So Lauren, let's talk about the applications now, or rather the few students that we spoke to, which is a small pool, looking at the number of students that are currently outside the District 6 campus. 3 of the ones that we spoke to are first-year students, have been accepted to study or be enrolled and are enrolled at CPUT to study there. However, there is the issue of accommodation and being allocated. They're saying that their statuses are indicating that they are pending, and orientation starts on Monday.
So we would expect that someone who is making an application is also doing their bit in that process. We are unable to accommodate absolutely everybody who applies. We received 80,000 applications for residence at last count. So that means that, if we've got something like 38,000 students, we are almost, triple that are applying for residence. So we will have situations where vulnerable people don't get allocated a room. What we need for them then is to work with our systems. They are unaccredited residences. Those processes are kicking into place. This week we've placed hundreds of students who have made applications. So what we're doing right now is we are phoning each person within the CPUT residence system and asking, are you accepting your place and are you accepting your room? So those that say no, we immediately reallocate those. And female first years will be the ones that we prioritize. And so many people have gotten those calls and aren't actually waiting.
Just quickly for us, Lauren, are there any solutions for those that are currently outside that are enrolled to be studying at CPUT this year?
We would encourage those people to look at private accommodation. As I've reiterated, we're incapable of housing absolutely everyone. We are also working with those. So our staff members are working around the clock to vet those applicants who are at our gates, just to see, are they funded? Can we help them? Can we put them into unaccredited residences and perhaps find a place for them? So we definitely are proactively working and trying to find solutions.
Thank you so much, Lauren, there from CPUT, the spokesperson, saying that the institution has its back against the wall and sort of their hands tied, looking at the number of applications that they have received for student accommodation and the number of students that they can actually accommodate, and encouraging those that have been enrolled at CPUT to look at private accommodation. So it is going to be quite difficult, I mean, for some of the students that are currently outside, and I'm assuming that there are going to be those kind of dialogues going into this particular week, seeing that, you know, some have started their academic year, and for first-year students will be starting their orientation on Monday.
Nasiphi, interesting what Lauren says, which speaks to some of these students, well, maybe not students, but obviously would-be students not actually having enrolled. Have you had any conversations with any of them just to establish if they indeed have been accepted, and if them sleeping on the pavement is a result of slow registration, if you will, as opposed to lack of acceptance?
Well, Hugo, from this morning, I mean, it was a big crowd of students, or those that are alleging that they are student outside the CPUT District 6 campus. We had an opportunity to, on camera, speak to only about 3, and these are first-year students and not returning students, and they were indicating that they have been accepted, enrolled, and registered to study this year at CPUT. However, the only stumbling block that they are currently faced with is the student accommodation, as their status is still pending. But we're hearing now from Lauren that as an institution, they're also trying to work around the clock, but looking at the demand and what they can actually supply, it does seem that many of them will have to be taking the route of private accommodation. But Hugo, I think once again, the issue of student accommodation has been brought to the fore again, because, I mean, as much as we are speaking about CPUT, we've heard of other institutions that are struggling with, trying to keep up with the demand from students who are looking to be housed and accommodated. But speaking to someone also today, they highlighted that perhaps it's also time for government to meet with institutions and student leaders to address the issue, the reoccurring issue yearly at institutions throughout the nation of student accommodation and housing of students, because they are saying that year on year students find themselves in a very difficult situation where they have been accepted to study. However, there is not enough space for them to be accommodated at student accommodations.
Nasiphi Same coming to us from the Peninsula University of Technology. And whichever way you look at it, whether these students have been registered or it's CPUT that's taking long to accommodate them, those conversations have continued for many a time. Appreciate your time this afternoon.